Hello, everyone. This is Pete, also known as Sumatran Black and various other pseudonyms. And this is my commentary for the album In the Dread, the first Sumatran Black album. I just thought this might be a fun thing to do. The album is it's over 40 minutes long, so we'll see how much I can actually come up with and talk about. But I do have the information, or some information, in front of me, because I've not listened to this album in a long time. So yeah, it was recorded in 2016 and released in 2017. And I'm just looking at the album notes here, and it says minimalist dark ambient blackness, necro chill. So at the time I was really trying to kind of come up with something that like reflected, I guess, the Norwegian sort of black metal necro sound, but was something that was a bit more dare I say, soothing and relaxing, hence the name Necro Chill. And the whether I was how successful I was at doing that, well, that's for other people to decide. And so the quotation here on the liner notes, as they would be called in the past: "We are your sons, we are your husbands, and we are everywhere." And I guess some of you know that is a quote attributed to Ted Bundy. I don't know if he actually said it, but it's a very popular quotation that he's associated with. And so this was intended to be, this album, my sort of goal when I first started putting it together was to have a kind of a blend of sort of atmospheric, ambient black metal mixed with synthwave sections, with lyrics and vocals. And if you know the album, you'll know that there are no vocals in the album, there are no lyrics, and there is no kind of synthwave elements. What I really wanted to try and do, which ultimately turned out to kind of be beyond my abilities at the time, I wanted to have the kind of, how do I explain this? That what you're hearing is not an album of the mind of a serial killer, but what you're hearing is someone who's completely delusional and kind of is living a fantasy of that existence. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I was trying to do. And yeah, so I think we're already into the first like main act, because I divided, because I wanted it to be like this idea of a fantasist. They would always imagine something as a film in their head, and this is why we have opening titles: Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And maybe I should kind of talk a bit about the opening titles track, which was, at the time, I was kind of creating ambient tracks in kind of improvised one takes, reversing them, and then loading them into a sampler, playing the whole thing back, and then kind of manipulating the pitch wheel to create that warbling, distorted kind of sound. And as you can hear, the whole album is incredibly over EQ'd intentionally, so lots of the top end has been completely removed on purpose. if you're familiar with any of my other projects, including other albums under the Sumatran Black name, you'll know I like singular pad chords repeated. I've always thought that one of the things about minimalist music, I guess, if we want to use that term, is if you give a listener a repeated figure or idea, if you give enough a hint, an emotion or a feeling, then the listener will hook onto that, and then as it repeats, then their own imagination will do things to create kind of bigger ideas. And also I kind of think that when you're listening to something that is that consists of a very consistent or repetitive idea, your world is changing around that idea as you're listening. So the time zone or the space-time continuum is continuing whilst something else is locked in, and that creates kind of an interesting tension. To me, anyway. Obviously, tons of guitar on this album. No bass guitar, just guitar, and all the drums are drum samples off of a very old sample CD. I think works quite well. You know, it didn't need to be fancy. I wish I could have played the drums myself. This was all recorded on Bandcamp, not Bandcamp. This is all recorded on GarageBand, by the way. I use Ableton now, but all of this was done in my little tiny studio apartment in Istanbul on a very old Mac Mini. And like I said, just using Bandcamp and stock plugins to do everything, basically. I don't recall what the guitar processing was, but I think it was, excuse my noisy chair, I think I tried to make it as Necro sound as possible, and didn't run it through any amp simulator. So it's going like straight in with just distortion. I mean, the album was kind of created. It was, I just wanted to come up with lots of like riffs that I liked. And I had a huge selection of riffs and little ideas, like the ones that are blending into each other now. And it was kind of the actual real difficult part of the album was deciding how to combine these, and most of that was trial and error, I guess. Let me just check where we are in the album. So we're still in Obsession Compulsion. I like 2-word titles, but I've kind of stopped doing that now because I've done it too many times on various releases, but maybe I'll do it again on a future thing. But quite concise, and just gives enough to the listener to kind of paint a very grey and inky picture or painting, and then for them to kind of complete the rest themselves. And as you'll hear throughout the album, there's various little synth parts that either have kind of their own melodies. Sometimes they'll double the guitar parts. Sometimes they'll do their own thing. And as I said before, these are all just stock synth plugins on GarageBand. This weren't done with this. They weren't done with anything fancy. And yeah, the title, In the Dread. I thought that the title, by the way, was In the Dread of Night, like in the dead of night, kind of, because I wanted something that sounded slightly humorous in a way, so it's not, don't take it too seriously. But I thought maybe just In the Dread had a kind of less is more, I'll, as I said before, give people just enough to kind of wrap their own ideas around the small thing that you've presented to them. The guitar work on this album, I tried to keep it not sounding too proficient, which I'm not on the guitar these days, but all kinds of different tunings were used. I'm using a 7-string guitar throughout the album, but that doesn't mean that the stuff is always using the low B, or however it was retuned. I think I retuned the whole guitar down a whole step on a couple of things, because it's not really supposed to sound heavy. It's supposed to sound atmospheric, and I didn't put any bass on there because I didn't have one at the time, and I thought it sounded fine without. If you guys are into black metal, of course, you can hear some of the sort of Norwegian influence, especially like Dark Throne and Bosom. It's interesting, maybe these days you can't really say you like music that has kind of let's say, how do I put this, artists who maybe have dubious political ideas. So sometimes it's difficult to say, oh, like I love, the first 3 Bosom albums, they're like, I've listened to them and I still listen to them, it's something that some people wouldn't say these days. I don't know, it's something, can you separate the artist from what they, it's a difficult one. Can you still enjoy Morrissey if you don't agree with his political views? Can you separate those things? Personally, I think I can, but some people, they don't think that's possible. Maybe I'm just deluded and I'm just ignoring those things because I don't want to abandon the great songs or the great music these people have produced. Okay, so where are we? The album here. Okay, this is still Act 1. As I said, I've not listened for a long, long time, and the times that I've performed live, I've never really performed anything from this. It's just too difficult to incorporate into an ambient set because I'm basically, as a kind of artist, I've kind of evolved into mostly ambient and dark ambient kind of music instead of this sort of post, how can I say, post black metal or ambient black metal kind of sound. Um, but maybe I'll return to it in the future because I do find it very satisfying to listen to. It sounds better than I remember it being. So the artwork, I try and do um, all of my artwork myself. I just like doing it that way. I find it fun. Um, one or two things I've had other people help me, or for example, for Taxonomy of Grief, that was a piece of art that I'd seen, and the uh, the painter kindly let me use it for that release. So I didn't create that one myself. But yeah, the artwork in for this uh, album is actually just a picture of like a pond near my hometown, which is Bournemouth in the United Kingdom in England, and I always think it looks like there's a face there, but it's just reeds. I think if you're making independent, underground, sort of niche genres of music, just do the artwork yourself. It's gonna be better, it's gonna have more meaning, and you don't want people to say, "Oh, it looks really professional." That's the last thing you want to hear, in my opinion. You just, like I said, do it yourself. It's more enjoyable. Okay, so this is obviously the intro to Act 3. Act 2, sorry. The intro to Act 2, which I think is Reverence and Torment. Let me check. I get these. Yeah, as I said, I've not played these live. I've not listened to this in a long time. And so the titles, um, I've basically forgotten them. So Reverence, Torment, um, sort of an ambient, kind of spacey, watery ambient introduction to kind of cleanse the palette before we go back into a more sort of guitar section again. So as I mentioned at the start of this commentary, whichever you like, I said that originally this was intended to have lyrics and vocals, and amazingly I found the lyrics. Okay, so this is a good lesson. Always save everything, and maybe I think it would be might be cool to just read some of them out, a couple of them, because there's maybe 6 or 7 songs worth here. Okay, which shall I start with? Let's have a look. Okay, this one is called The Collapse. Quite a thing, this. An almost imperceptible moral disintegration. We lie in a hell of our own making and of our own creation. Self-serving slaves to our own pathetic appetites. We lie to ourselves and say we never saw it coming. There is no way but down from here. And please excuse my misty-eyed salutation. It's just that you are going to lose everything, and I will gain everything. There is no way but down from here. Good to know I'm not the only one. That was The Collapse. Okay, this one is the lyrics for Just Like You. It's quite short. I'm just like you. I'm from the same place too. BMX for Christmas, McDonald's for birthdays. Fishing with Pop, cartoons after school, weekend trips to the beach, baking cakes with Mom. High school crush, failing my driving test 3 times. Not such a good lyric, that one. I did fail my driving test 3 times. Okay, this one, Unspeakable Deeds, which was a provisional song title as well, obviously. My last drop of humanity has left me. My moral compass is adrift. Spaghettification of the neural pathways. Cerebral cortex has shown its defects. The switch is set to off. Conscience, remorse, empathy are now totally alien concepts to me. My value is now as a test subject, poured over like a new species, prodded, poked, and probed, scanning my frontal lobe, supported by peer-reviewed empirical data, quantifiable lunacy. Every citation, a confirmation. Isn't it fascinating? Never thought my opinions valuable. Any last words? Stay true to yourself. Do what makes you happy. Get a hobby. A shitty cable TV documentary played on repeat endlessly. Clean cut. Nice jacket. Take him home to Mum. Talking happily about the weather. You see nothing when you look into my eyes. I feel nothing when I look into yours. It's not a question of if, but when. It's happening again. Okay, maybe I'll upload all the lyrics at some point. There's loads more on there. Some of them are okay, actually. But yeah, so I was gonna, as I said, have vocals in this release, and I did record a couple of demos with vocals, but I don't know, maybe I was self-conscious, maybe I just can't do very good death metal vocals, death metal, black metal vocals, but it sounded so comical, but not in a way that was agreeable to me. It was very, very funny sounding. Maybe I should redo the album with a vocal version, just as a, I don't know, as a bonus thing. There's those isolated pad chords again. So yeah, this album is kind of like a bunch of mini ideas, small ideas, guitar and drum parts that, as I referred to earlier, were then kind of compiled together in a trial and error fashion. And what I tried to do when I was doing that is have some parts where they were like there was a common tonal center, so the blend sounded musically harmonious or nice. Okay, let's call it that. And other parts where when the new riff or the new musical idea came in, it didn't share a tonal center. And in lots of my other music, I try and experiment with this idea. I mean, I had some musical training, but I am not. I haven't done 5 years of classical composition and studied Bach harmony for years or something, and counterpoint. But I have some kind of light understanding of harmony and key and chord progression and those kind of things. But I kind of like surprise moments in music that you don't really expect, especially if you have very either jarring or slightly weird modulations or key changes. So that was the end of Act 2, Reverence and Torment. And here we go. So this is Act 3, Patience and Restraint. Maybe not the most appropriate title for the third act, since your third act is supposed to be your kind of conflict resolution in 3-act structure. But let's not worry about that too much. So yeah, I do like contrast when I'm doing the programming of my tracks within an album. And as you heard, we had something extremely soft and gentle at the end of Act 2, and then Act 3 just came straight in with a very sort of aggressive and demonic guitar riff and some double bass pedal in the drum part. So here we have another blend or transition from one musical idea to another. And if you're trying to create something that sounds dreamlike, let's say, I think that's a very good way of doing it. If you have sort of indistinct transitions between musical ideas, it helps to create a certain atmosphere that um, I would immediately associate with dreams. Also, maybe they have become less fashionable now. Dissolves in cinema and TV between scenes. I think if you do it in music, it does kind of um, have a cinematic quality. By cinematic, I don't mean like big and epic. I mean uh, in the same way you would edit a movie or TV show or any sort of visual, uh, moving visual image. I think if you have these sort of smooth um, transitions between musical ideas, also kind of sort of gives the overall sort of piece like a hypnotic quality that kind of makes the listener hopefully got into some sort of like uh, trance state in a sense, or some sort of different level of consciousness if it works well. And I guess this is why when a DJ successfully mixes a bunch of tracks, maybe even in the same key together, it can create this tribal, almost ritualistic, um, primal, emotional, and physical response in the listener. Well done if you have made it this far. We're over halfway. And of course, let me know what you think of these things. Obviously, this is the first one. Is it enjoyable, interesting, pointless? Does it ruin the album for you now that you've heard me talking over it? Did you fall asleep? Did you, well, if you got this far, hopefully you didn't. I always fall asleep to my own music. I don't think that's a bad thing, you know. It's not something I'd put on a poster, but yeah, especially ambient music, if it kind of gets you into that hyper relaxed state, I think that's a really, really good thing. If that's what you intended it to do, if it's like supposed to make people feel excited and wake them up and they fall asleep, then obviously you have failed. Well, yeah, it's quite difficult to. I didn't want to just listen to each track and then comment on each musical idea individually. I mean, I can't do that anyway, that would be impossible. And it's been interesting listening to this again. I always sort of said to myself that this album is maybe artistically the most successful album I've created, and it's the first one because I think the mood that I was trying to create, the overall work as a whole, what I was trying to say in its finished version, really does do what I wanted it to do. Um, and so it's quite satisfying to listen to. And as I've said, this is sort of musical area I would like to return to at some point. Of course, it would be quite easy to write a sequel or a prequel. Not easy, but it would be a good shortcut to get started. And so maybe I'll do that in the future. I really haven't been collecting riffs, and I've actually neglected playing my guitar quite a lot, so I would have to get my guitar playing a little bit better. And maybe this sort of outro section is where you can hear a little bit of kind of synthwave, retro wave, just a little hint of it here. And this section is, in a sense, supposed to be an emotional payoff. So, in all of my music, and I guess people who enjoy the music I make, there's always an attempt to have these sort of big emotional sections. And as I've said myself before, a little bit sentimental, a little bit nostalgic as well. All of those nice emotions that make us feel something, or the ones that haunt us the most. And as you can hear, the guitar parts are starting to fade, and the synth parts will come to prominence. Very, very Pet Shop Boys. synthesizer section, this, I think. Huge fan of the Pet Shop Boys, by the way. Huge fan. Yeah, so this would have been one of the sort of synth wavy, retro wavy sections. And yeah, this is the end of Act 3, Patience and Restraint. And I guess those are appropriate words, because sometimes I do like to test the patience of the listener. How many times can I repeat this? How long can this section go on for? What's the endurance of the listener before they say, oh, I'm sick of this, or what's happening here? Nothing's happening. If you check out my soundtrack that I did for Page of Madness, I think the last page 8 or page 9, I always get them confused. You'll hear a melodic figure that goes on for almost 20 minutes. Maybe that was too much, but at the time I was experimenting a bit. And so yeah, this is the end credits section, Tenebrosity. If you make dark music or dark ambient music and you want to write about it or speak about it, you'll find after a while that you have run out of words that mean dark. And you can use other languages like Karanlik, which is Turkish. But I found tenebrosity is another word for darkness, which I had not heard, despite being an English literature major at my last years at high school. Yeah, I'm not a massive book reader. I'm a huge cinema sort of buff, and of course listen to tons of music. But yeah, tenebrosity. And again, this is used. Was created using a similar technique to the beginning, the opening title section, reversing things and then manipulating the pitch wheel. And I wanted a nice bookend kind of to the album, something that would mirror the beginning. Is this a single narrative journey in chronological order, or is it fragments of different timelines? I keep using the word timelines because that's my most recent album. I guess it's for the listener to put the story together in their head, whatever they take from it. Okay, well, thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting Sumatran Black Records if you've done so. This is not a definitive commentary. There's loads of things that maybe you might want to know, or maybe not. You don't care. If there is anything you want to know, just write something in the comments or message me and I'll do my best to answer. And yeah, once again, thanks for listening.